All right, Barrett, appreciate you sitting down with us again. So last time what we talked about, you and your wife were struggling to figure out how much insurance do we actually need. And it can be a complicated subject, so there's really three different ways that we can go about it. The first way, and the simplest way, we can just pick a number that feels good to us. The second way, and this is just a general rule of thumb, is just 15 to 20 times your income. And then the third way is going through this life insurance needs analysis, where we kind of break it down step by step to figure out what is the right number for you. Now, what I'll typically say is all of these numbers will look fairly similar. But that being said, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to walk through this needs analysis. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I'd like to plan out the numbers rather than just pick one.
Exactly. I've never been a picker. Some people like just to do that and they feel confident with it. It always kind of worries me. I like to see how it works in the background. So that's the reason why we go through this. Now, is Susan comfortable with you stepping in for her today as well?
Yeah, she did say it was okay for me to go ahead and take a crack at it.
Take a crack at it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, first, tough questions. What are you both of y'all's current incomes?
So right now I'm making about $90,000 a year.
Okay.
And Susan is making about $60,000 a year.
Perfect. You guys are doing very well for yourselves.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Trevor.
And so when we talk about a family income goal, so that's the goal of the income for the family. What we want to see is we combine your two incomes, so that's about $150,000, and that's either 70 to 80% is the family income goal, and that's just based on financial planning 101 is the way we get that. Now, for you personally, would you want to see more towards the 70% or 80% of your income goal replaced?
I think probably around 70% because if one of us passes, we'll really cut expenses because we won't be eating out as much anymore.
Oh, you guys are big eaters.
Yeah.
Love eating out. What are your favorite restaurants?
Oh, you know that the one in the Ball at downtown Dallas, I think it's Wolfgang Puck. Yeah, Susan's a terrible cook, so we're always out.
Gosh, my mother was that way, so I can appreciate that about you. Moving on. So when we're looking at income needs, if one of y'all were to pass, are you expecting to receive some sort of Social Security payment in the future?
Oh no, have you seen the deficit? There's no way we're gonna have Social Security. Let's just cut that out.
Yeah, no, I believe that we're gonna receive it. I don't believe it's gonna be as much as past generations have, so I don't like to plan for it. I like to plan for certainties, not for maybes.
Yeah.
So great. And then do you guys expect to receive any sort of survivor's income benefit? So if there's a pension out there, maybe sometimes there's a survivor's income if one of y'all were to pass?
No, we're too young to have pensions.
Okay, sadly, I know it's a different era that we're growing up in.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do now is we're going to look at the income shortage between what you guys want as your family income goal and what you're currently making. So let me just do a quick couple calculations here. 29,000. Perfect. And then what the next conversation that we're going to talk about is inflation adjusted earnings rate. Sounds way too complicated. Basically, this is what we're expecting that we'll be able to use this capital for to derive income from. So what a lot of people, like you can think of retirement, you create this big nest egg. What this life insurance is going to do is create a nest egg for your spouse to live off of, whether it's Susan or you that passes. This is how you're going to make up the difference. What we typically see people do is account for 5%. Now, if we're expecting more than 5%, that's going to draw the life insurance death benefit down. We're not going to need as much. But if we want to be a little bit more conservative, we go more towards 4 and 3% that we're going to draw from that. What makes you most comfortable?
Let's stick with the 5%, I think. Yep.
Yeah, then that's what we typically see. It makes any more than that, and I think we're being a bit aggressive, and any less is like, yeah, I like being conservative, but sometimes too conservative isn't the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, wait, what am I doing? Great. So moving on to the next section. So final expenses. Are you familiar with how much funerals are costing these days?
No, we've got pretty longevity in my family, so nobody's dying anytime soon.
It's a good thing not really to know how much they cost. Typically what we see is about $10,000 is what the standard funeral is costing these days. I don't know if you're planning on something extravagant, a huge tombstone.
Yeah, let's up that about double for me, because I want a big funeral. Yep.
Okay.
20,000. Susan, she'll be, you could bury her outside in front of the building, so you can keep it at 10,000.
Great, let's keep it there. And then a lot of times we see people, when there is the event of a passing, they want some sort of emergency fund. And what that emergency fund does is allow them really to enter the grieving process and not have to worry about going back to work, paying bills. Is there a number that sounds good to you guys that you feel like would able you guys to go through that grieving process without having any financial concerns?
Yeah, I think 10,000 would probably cover it.
Yeah, and that's what I typically see with individuals choosing about that much. And then remind me, you guys have 2 kids?
Yeah, 2 kids.
Do you guys
Bobby
have
and Susie.
Bobby and Susie? Great,
Yeah.
right after their parents.
Yep.
Have you guys thought about college planning already, or do you have a plan in place for them?
We have no plan in place, so
Are you hoping to pay for their college in the event of one of you passing?
yeah, and we'll probably give them 25,000 apiece, so 50,000 would be reasonable, I think.
Okay, perfect. And then remind me, have you guys paid off? Do you own your house in full?
No, we don't. We actually have about $100,000 mortgage still left.
100,000? Okay.
And I'd like to see that paid off. Yeah.
You would. That's typically what I recommend to individuals. The last thing that you want is leave the burden of the home still there. And then is there any other outstanding debt that y'all would want to repay?
No, I think we're pretty much debt free besides the mortgage.
Perfect. I'd love to hear that. Now, so. Okay. And then do you guys have any current liquid assets that you could use to pay for some of these things in the event of one's passing?
So I've got about $50,000 in investments. That's pretty liquid. It's in gold and silver. So
Would you want that to be used to help pay for some of these things in the event of one of y'all passing?
no, I think I'd rather be buried with my gold and silver. So
Buried with it?
yep.
Nice. I like. Well, why don't we just make the whole thing, the whole tombstone, gold and silver?
Yeah. So no, let's leave those alone.
And then, do you have any existing life insurance through work or anything like that?
Yeah, I've got 1.5 times the salary, and same with Susan.
Great. So, um, so let's go. Okay, Barrett. So what we're seeing, based off this needs analysis and everything going on here, both of you guys are going to need about $1 million in coverage. Now, tell me, how does that number feel to you?
Seems really high for Susie. I mean, I don't think she needs $1 million in coverage.
Okay.
You know?
Well, let's go back through this. So we said that you guys still want to have $119,000 in annual income. Is that still what you would like?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Because we can adjust that down if you want to.
No, let's keep it that way.
Okay. And then final expenses. You said $10,000 for her funeral. Is that still important to you? That $10,000
Yeah.
to pay for it?
Yeah, we're going to have to bury her somewhere.
The emergency funds.
Yeah.
Do you still want that? Education, still making sure the kids get a good college education. Is that still
Yeah.
important to you? How about that mortgage? We can knock that off, and that'll help take some of that out.
No, I think I want to keep that there.
Okay. So looking at all of this, $1 million sounds like the number for both of you.
Okay. I guess.
Tell me, does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I guess run through the numbers. Yep. That
Okay.
sounds good.
Great, and that's why we do this, because it always seems at first like, oh my God, that's a big number. But you are actually a very valuable individual, and you guys are both worth that amount of money. So that's the way I like to think about it. It's like, hey, cool, I'm worth that much.
Well, when you put it that way, I do. That does sound pretty
Right?
good.
That feels good. I'm not worth $200,000. That's awful. No,
Yeah.
I'm more towards this the Trace Comas Club, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Great. So Barrett, now that we've figured out your number, the next most important thing is to figure out the type of life insurance that's right for you and your wife. Has anyone walked through the 5 different types of life insurance?
I thought there was only term life insurance.
Great idea, and that's why we always like to bring this up so we can figure that out.
Gotcha.
Fuck that up, but that's what happened.